Well, Carnegie Hall's initiative to train the next generation of performing artists has marked its 10th anniversary this summer. So, can you share with us some examples of how this program in particular promotes cultural exchanges?
Absolutely. When we created the National Youth Orchestra in 2013, one of the major goals, and I think one of the things that distinguishes it a bit from a lot of the other NYOs around the world, is that we put international touring at the very center of what we wanted to accomplish. And that first year we went to Russia with the great Russian conductor Valery Gergiev, and then we continued on and finished at the BBC Proms. But when we decided to do our second international tour, we really wanted to prioritize the China relationship, and so that was our next destination in 2015. We did 7 concerts here in China. It was a wonderful experience. We had a number of occasions that we met local musicians, including in Guangzhou and in Hong Kong. And for our students, the chance to, most of them, make their first visit to China. Since then, we've also started a jazz program called NYO Jazz, which came to China for its first tour in 2019. And it's the same concept as the orchestra, but in particular, what's nice about that is we're bringing American music. Jazz is really America's special musical art form.
Why do you think this particular international component is important to young musicians?
I think number one, I think why it's important and why it makes sense to do it is the old saying about music as a universal language, and the fact that particularly in many parts of Asia, there are many young people studying music, studying Western classical music in particular, studying the violin, studying the piano, and that gives one an immediate point of connection, where the other sort of cultural and language barriers may make it a little harder to interact. If you have that shared love of music, it makes it quite easy, person to person, people to people, to form a relationship. And I think that's especially true with young people who are naturally open to each other. I heard from many of our students after we came to Guangzhou in 2015, and it was really only an hour they spent meeting some of their peers at a rehearsal, but they immediately became friends. They immediately stayed on touch through social media, through their phones and other devices, and some of those relationships continue now almost 10 years later.
So I'm curious, what are the outcomes and impacts of these cross-cultural endeavors on these participants?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things they gain and they talk about is just seeing the audience, I think, appreciate music in a different way. It is a younger audience here, and I think new cities, new cultures, a place with a huge sense of history. China is a vastly older country and culture than we have in America, and I think it just provides one a perspective, especially as a young person, and especially as the relationship between America and China in some ways has had its ups and downs, but I think in the cultural space we feel a very close connection. We feel a close connection between Carnegie Hall and the NCPA, which has been a wonderful partner to us, and I think we see it as an important opportunity to keep those lines of communication and keep it on a person-to-person basis, which is always the way relationships really develop.
Well, music is a very powerful tool in bridging cultures. Are there any new projects which you're working on which involves cultural exchanges or international collaborations?
We are planning a youth orchestra festival for the first time at Carnegie Hall, and that will happen in the summer of 2024. And there will be an orchestra representing China coming. We haven't announced all of the details yet. There will also be young musicians from Africa, from South America, from Europe, and so that whole project is about bringing people together, facilitating dialogue, and having the young people of the world through music kind of share their perspective on our planet and our future.
So how do you envision the future of cultural collaborations between China and the U.S.?
I think we see China as a very regular destination for our groups, and we are very much looking forward to coming back, hopefully in 2025 with the National Youth Orchestra, and I think just keeping that dialogue between these two big important countries in the world open through music and through young people seems like a natural part of what we'd like to be doing.